Have you ever stood at a crossroads, frozen by the whisper of self-doubt? That moment when your mind races with questions, what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? Until the weight of uncertainty paralyzes you. It's a feeling we all know too well, but what if I told you there's an ancient philosophy, tested by time and hardship, that holds the keys to silencing those doubts for good? Stoicism, the same wisdom that guided Roman emperors and modern leaders alike, offers more than just resilience. It gives us a blueprint for reclaiming our confidence, one thought at a time. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king who ruled Rome at its peak, faced battles both on the battlefield and within his own mind. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. That power is what we're here to uncover, because self-doubt isn't just a passing emotion, it's a habit of thought, a loop we can learn to interrupt. And the Stoics didn't just theorize about it, they gave us concrete steps to break free. Imagine having 22 tools, each forged in the fires of ancient wisdom, to dismantle doubt and replace it with unshakable clarity. Tools that don't ask you to pretend fear doesn't exist, but to face it, understand it, and rise above it. This isn't about quick fixes or empty motivation. It's about rewiring how you see challenges, mistakes, and even your own potential. Whether you're hesitating to take that career leap, struggling to trust your instincts, or just tired of second-guessing every decision, these Stoic strategies meet you where you are. We'll explore how to differentiate doubt from intuition, why discomfort is your ally, and how to build a mindset that doesn't crumble under pressure. By the end, you won't just feel more confident, you'll have a philosophy to return to, time and again, like an inner compass. So let's begin where the Stoics did, by recognizing that the battle against doubt starts not in the world around us, but in the way we choose to see it. The first and most powerful Stoic tool against self-doubt is understanding what's truly within your power, because nothing fuels uncertainty faster than wrestling with forces beyond your reach. Epictetus, the former slave-turned-philosopher, opened his famous handbook with a simple but life-changing idea. Some things are within our control, while others are not. Your opinions, your actions, your desires, these belong to you. But external events, other people's judgments, even the outcomes of your efforts, those lie outside your command. Self-doubt thrives when we blur this line, when we tie our confidence to things we can't dictate, like whether a promotion comes through, or if someone approves of our choices. Take criticism at work as an example. Imagine pouring your energy into a project, only to have a colleague dismiss it. The Stoic approach isn't to ignore the sting, but to ask, what part of this is truly mine to manage? You controlled the effort you gave, the creativity you invested, their reaction, that's their territory. By drawing this boundary, you reclaim your footing. The doubt that whispers, maybe I'm not cut out for this, loses its grip when you realize your worth isn't decided by external validation. Here's how to put this into practice tonight. Grab a notebook and draw 2 circles. Label the inner one, my control. This holds your focus, your preparation, your attitude. The outer circle, beyond my control. Here, list outcomes, others' opinions, even luck. When self-doubt creeps in, return to this map. Train yourself to invest energy only in the inner circle. Marcus Aurelius did this daily, reminding himself, the obstacle becomes the way. Every rejection, every unforeseen setback, merely material to strengthen your resolve. Because when you stop mistaking the uncontrollable for your responsibility, you free yourself to act with clarity, not fear. Self-doubt often speaks in absolutes. I always mess this up. I'll never be good enough. But Stoicism teaches us to meet those exaggerated claims with cold, hard logic. Seneca, the philosopher who counseled emperors, wrote letters urging his friends to interrogate their fears. He didn't mean suppressing negative thoughts. He meant cross-examining them like a lawyer exposing a flawed argument. When your inner critic insists you're going to fail, ask it, what's the evidence? Is this really true or just a feeling? Have I overcome similar challenges before? This is how you strip self-doubt of its emotional power, by treating it as a hypothesis to test, not a fact to accept. Marcus Aurelius left us a masterclass in this practice. His private journals, never meant to be published, show him wrestling with his own insecurities, yet always circling back to reason. "Tell yourself what you would tell a dear friend," he wrote. Imagine a teammate confessing they're terrified of an upcoming presentation. You wouldn't amplify their fear, you'd remind them of their preparation, their past successes. Why not extend that same kindness to yourself? Try this tonight. Take one persistent doubt: I'm not qualified for this role, my ideas aren't valuable, and dissect it with Socratic questioning. First, write the thought down verbatim. Then ask, is this 100% true, or are there exceptions? What would I say to someone I love who voiced this belief? What's the cost of holding onto this thought? Logic doesn't erase anxiety overnight, but it creates cracks in the wall of self-doubt. Every time you challenge an irrational belief, you reinforce a new narrative: I am capable of figuring things out. The Stoics knew our minds magnify shadows into monsters. By shining the light of reason on those shadows, we reclaim what's always been ours: the ability to choose which thoughts deserve our trust. Perfectionism is the silent saboteur of confidence, convincing us that missteps are proof we're not enough. But the Stoics flipped this script entirely. They didn't just tolerate imperfection, they embraced it as the very fuel of growth. Seneca, who faced exile, financial ruin, and betrayal, wrote that failure is not falling down but refusing to get up. To him, every mistake was a lesson in disguise, a chance to practice resilience like a muscle. This is the heart of amor fati, the love of fate where even flaws become stepping stones. Imagine two blacksmiths. One discards a blade at the first sign of imperfection, while the other hammers the flaw into the sword's unique strength. Which blade survives the battle? Society often treats failure like a stain to hide, but Stoicism teaches us to wear our scars as proof of learning. Consider the athlete who tears a ligament. Their rehab isn't just physical, it's mental. Each painful stretch rebuilds not just the muscle, but their trust in their body's capacity to heal. That's the Stoic mindset. Your past mistakes aren't enemies. Their mentors, Marcus Aurelius, scribbled in his journals about the gifts hidden in setbacks, the patience he gained from delays, the creativity born from obstacles. Even his temper, which he wrestled with daily, became a teacher in self-awareness. Here's how to apply this tonight. Pick one: regret a project that flopped, a harsh word you wish you'd unsaid, and reframe it through amor fati. Ask, what did this experience force me to learn? How did it make me wiser or kinder? A chef doesn't master sauces without curdling a few. A writer doesn't find their voice without pages of discarded drafts. The Stoics didn't see life as a test to ace, but as a dojo where every bruise trains you to move with more grace. So next time self-doubt hisses, "You should have been perfect," reply, "No, I needed to grow." What if the very thing you fear could become your greatest source of strength? The Stoics practiced an exercise called Premeditatio Malorum, Latin for the premeditation of evils, not to dwell on doom, but to disarm fear's grip. Seneca, who weathered political storms and personal betrayals, would begin each day by mentally rehearsing adversity, losing his status, his wealth, even his health. Why? Because by confronting the worst-case scenario before it happened, He stripped it of its power to shock or paralyze him. This isn't pessimism, it's preparation. When self-doubt whispers, "What if everything goes wrong?" the Stoic replies, "Let's see and realize I can handle it." Think of a tightrope walker. They don't step onto the wire pretending a fall is impossible. They practice recovering from stumbles on a safety harness. That's negative visualization, training your mind to navigate instability without freezing. Imagine you're terrified of public speaking. Instead of avoiding the thought, sit with it. What's the worst that could happen? My mind goes blank, the audience laughs, I feel humiliated. Now ask, would that truly destroy me? History's most admired figures, from Lincoln to Mandela, faced public failures far worse, yet persisted. The monster under the bed shrinks when you turn on the light. Seneca wrote, "He who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." Try this tonight. Pick a challenge you're avoiding, a difficult conversation, a creative risk, and vividly imagine failing at it. Feel the embarrassment, the disappointment. Then map your comeback. Who would still support you? What lessons would you carry forward? You'll often find the worst case is survivable, even instructive. The athlete who visualizes missing the shot also rehearses resetting for the next play. The writer who pictures harsh reviews drafts their next chapter anyway. Self-doubt thrives on vague, unchallenged fears. Negative visualization transforms those shadows into concrete scenarios you can outmaneuver. Because when you've already walked through the fire in your mind, the real heat feels familiar, not fatal. And that's how fear becomes focus. Marcus Aurelius often spoke of building an inner citadel, a mental fortress no external storm could breach. Picture a stone tower standing firm against howling winds. Inside, quiet and calm persist no matter the chaos outside. That's the Stoics' refuge. For the emperor, ruling an empire meant constant threats, betrayals, plagues, wars. Yet his journals reveal a man who refused to let circumstance dictate his peace. He wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." That's the power of the inner citadel. It's not about ignoring life's turbulence, but creating a space where self-doubt can't drown out your clarity. Think of a musician backstage before a performance, hands trembling. The crowd's murmurs seep through the curtains, but instead of panicking, they close their eyes and hear the melody they've practiced 1,000 times. That's retreating to your citadel, anchoring yourself in what you know to be true, not the whispers of fear. The Stoics didn't deny hardship, they trained to meet it from a place of unshakable inner strength. When doubt screams, "You're not ready," the citadel reminds you, "I've prepared, I've survived harder. This moment doesn't define me. Here's how to fortify yours." Tonight, sit somewhere quiet and visualize a place that feels utterly safe to you. A childhood treehouse, a library corner, even an imaginary vault of solid stone. This is your citadel. Now recall a recent moment when self-doubt crept in. Replay the scene, but this time, imagine stepping inside that fortress. From its windows, observe the doubt like passing weather. It's there, but it can't touch the core of you. Marcus Aurelius did this daily, writing, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Each time you retreat inward, you reinforce a truth. Your worth isn't hostage to fleeting fears. The beauty of this practice, no one can storm your citadel unless you lower the drawbridge. Not criticism, not failure, not even your own darkest what-ifs. Because inside those walls, you're not the person doubt tries to convince you you are. You're the architect of your resilience, brick by mental brick. And the more you return to that space, the clearer you see self-doubt is just noise outside the gates. The real power was within you all along. There's a reason Epictetus warned his students, "If you wish to be free, never desire what depends on others." He understood something we're still grappling with 2,000 years later. Comparison is the thief of confidence. Every time you measure your worth against someone else's highlight reel, you hand them the keys to your self-worth. And nowhere is this trap more glaring than in our modern world of curated perfection. Social media didn't invent envy, but it turned it into a relentless, algorithm-fueled sport. The Stoics, though, offered a radical alternative: self-sufficiency. Not the kind that isolates you, but the kind that liberates you, because when your validation comes from within, no follower count or likes can shake your foundation. Think of it like two gardeners. One obsesses over their neighbor's prize-winning roses, neglecting their own plot in despair. The other tends their soil, knowing comparison won't make their seeds grow faster. That's the Stoic mindset. Marcus Aurelius had the entire Roman Empire at his feet, yet he wrote, "It's ridiculous not to escape from your own vices, which is possible, while trying to escape the vices of others, which is impossible." He wasn't saying to ignore others' strengths, but to stop letting their journey distort yours. Here's the hard truth: scrolling through filtered success stories isn't research, it's self-sabotage. Every hour spent coveting someone else's career, body, or relationships is an hour stolen from building your own. But detoxing doesn't mean swearing off technology. It means retraining your attention. Start small. Next time you catch yourself falling into the comparison spiral, pause. Ask, does this serve me? Would Epictetus waste his energy here? Then redirect. Open your Notes app and list 3 things you've progressed on this week, no matter how minor. Maybe you finally nailed that recipe or resisted snapping at a rude coworker. That's real growth. The Stoics practiced gratitude like a daily vitamin, not just for warm fuzzies, but as armor against discontent. Seneca wrote letters detailing the simple gifts of his life: a friend's laughter, the warmth of sunlight, to remind himself that joy wasn't found in outshining others, but in appreciating what was already his. Try this tonight. Put your phone in another room and grab a notebook. Write down 1 skill you've improved, 1 hardship you've weathered, and 1 small pleasure today. That's your authentic scorecard. Over time, you'll stop craving external validation because you've built something far stronger: an unshakable belief in your own journey. Remember, no one posts their struggles in the same font as their victories. The influencer's perfect morning routine probably took 12 takes, the colleague's flawless presentation. You didn't see the sleepless nights behind it. The Stoics knew this centuries ago. Comparison is just noise. Your path, your pace, your progress, that's the only currency that ever mattered. And when you finally stop measuring yourself against distorted reflections, you'll find the freedom Epictetus promised, not in being better than others, but in becoming the best version of yourself. The human mind has a peculiar habit. It either dwells on past regrets or spirals into future anxieties, rarely settling in the space where life actually unfolds, the present. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly when he wrote, "Don't let the future disturb you. You will meet it with the same weapons of reason and action that today arm you against the present." That's the Stoic secret to silencing self-doubt, not by fighting every what-if, but by grounding yourself in what is. Because doubt loses its grip when you're fully engaged in the moment, not lost in hypothetical disasters. Think of a musician mid-performance. If their mind wanders to the critic in the 3rd row or the high note coming in 2 minutes, their fingers falter. But when they're absorbed in the current measure, the music flows effortlessly. That's Stoic mindfulness, the practice of directing your attention to the task immediately before you, not the ghosts of past failures or future uncertainties. Ancient Stoics called this prosoch vigilant awareness of the present. It's why Epictetus taught his students to focus on their current role in life's grand play, not the scenes that hadn't been written yet. Here's how to cultivate this anchor. When you notice self-doubt creeping in, perhaps before a meeting or while working on a creative project, pause. Take 3 deliberate breaths, feeling the air fill your lungs and leave your body. With each exhale, mentally name one tangible detail around you: the texture of your desk, the hum of your computer, the weight of your pen. This isn't just relaxation, it's a tactical reset. You're training your mind to return to the only moment where action is possible, right now. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, reminding himself, concentrate every minute on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness. The beauty of this technique, it doesn't ask you to erase doubts magically. It simply deprives them of oxygen by shifting your focus to what you can do in this very second. A writer paralyzed by fear of rejection starts by typing one sentence. A speaker nervous about stuttering begins by articulating the first word clearly. Even the greatest Stoics faced uncertainty, but they knew the present moment is where doubt meets its match, because when you're fully here, what if becomes what is, and action replaces hesitation. Try this today. Set a phone reminder for 3 random times. When it buzzes, stop whatever you're doing for 30 seconds. Notice your posture, the sounds around you, the sensation of your feet on the floor. No judgment, no analysis, just presence. Over time, these micro pauses rewire your brain to default to the now, not the noise, because self-doubt can't survive in the light of focused attention. It thrives in the fog of the future or the shadows of the past, but here, in the present, here you're untouchable. Cato the Younger, the Roman senator who became a symbol of Stoic defiance, once walked through the streets of Rome in broad daylight wearing nothing but a tattered cloak, a deliberate act of humiliation. Why? To harden himself against the fear of embarrassment. While others dodged discomfort, Cato sought it out, treating every obstacle as a whetstone to sharpen his character. This is the essence of the Stoic mantra: the obstacle is the way, not a hollow motivational slogan, but a radical reframe that transforms barriers into the very path forward. When self-doubt whispers, "This is too hard," the Stoic replies, "Good, hard things are how I grow." Consider the blacksmith shaping a sword. The hammer's blows aren't destroying the metal, they're aligning its molecules into something unbreakable. That's the alchemy of adversity. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire plagued by war and plague, wrote in his private journals, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. He didn't just endure hardships, he mined them for lessons. A betrayal taught him discernment. A setback in battle refined his strategy. Even his own temper, which he wrestled with daily, became a mirror showing him where to practice patience. Here's how to apply this today. Take a current struggle, a project that's stalled, a skill that feels out of reach, and dissect it through Cato's lens. Ask, what muscle is this challenge forcing me to develop? A delayed promotion might be training persistence. A creative block could be teaching you to trust the process. The Stoics called this turning the obstacle upside down, and it's not about pretending things are easy. It's about recognizing that friction isn't the enemy of progress, it's the price. Try this tonight. Write down one obstacle you've been resisting. Now list 3 ways it's secretly serving you. Maybe that critical coworker is honing your diplomacy. That financial pinch is sparking resourcefulness. Even physical pain, as the gladiator-turned-philosopher Epictetus knew, can teach endurance. The goal isn't to enjoy hardship, but to stop seeing it as a detour from your path and start recognizing it as the path. History's most resilient figures, from inventors to activists, didn't avoid storms. They learned to sail in them. The writer plagued by rejection slips. Each one stripped away ego, leaving only raw determination. The athlete recovering from injury, their comeback forged mental toughness no victory alone could provide. The Stoics grasped a truth we often forget. Smooth seas don't make skilled sailors, so next time you face a wall, don't just look for a way around it. Ask what it's here to build in you, because the obstacle isn't blocking your way, it's preparing you for what lies beyond it. Self-doubt thrives in isolation. It convinces us our struggles are unique, our fears insurmountable. But the Stoics shattered this illusion by turning to their mentors, both living and long gone, for perspective. Seneca, who corresponded with friends across the Roman Empire, often began letters with phrases like, "Here's what I've been discussing with my teacher Attalus." He understood that wisdom isn't a solo endeavor, it's a conversation across time. When paralyzed by indecision or insecurity, ask yourself, what would Marcus Aurelius whisper in my ear? How would Epictetus reframe this challenge? Suddenly, your private battle becomes part of a lineage, a thread connecting you to thinkers who faced exile, war, and betrayal, yet still chose courage. Imagine two versions of yourself standing at a crossroads, one hunched under the weight of "I can't," the other upright with the steady gaze of a Stoic sage. Which version sees further? Self-doubt shrinks your vision to the immediate stumble. Philosophy lifts your eyes to the horizon. When Epictetus taught students to endure insults, he didn't say, "Ignore them." He said, "Remember, you're inheriting the resilience of Hercules and Odysseus." That's the power of mentorship, even imagined. Your struggles aren't new. Someone wiser than you has already mapped the terrain. Here's how to make this tangible tonight. Grab a sheet of paper and write 2 letters side by side. The first is from your present self, mired in doubt. "I'm terrified to launch this business. What if no one buys it?" The second, Seneca's reply. "Does the farmer refuse to plant seeds because one season might bring drought?" Prepare, act, and let the harvest come as it will. The gap between those letters is where growth happens. Then, flip the exercise. Write a letter to your future self 5 years from now. Describe the doubts haunting you today, the job you're afraid to pursue, the vulnerability you're avoiding, and let your older self reply with hard-won wisdom. Marcus Aurelius did this daily, addressing himself as "you" in his journals. You've survived worse. You know this storm passes. Time grants perspective. Borrowing that clarity today robs self-doubt of its urgency. The Stoics weren't immune to fear. They simply refused to face it alone. They stood shoulder to shoulder with the great minds of history, letting those voices drown out the whispers of inadequacy. So next time doubt creeps in, summon your council of sages. Ask Seneca for his wit, Epictetus for his grit, Marcus for his quiet resolve. Their answers won't erase the challenge, but they'll remind you, you're not the first to tremble, nor will you be the last to rise. Marcus Aurelius never intended for the world to read his private thoughts, yet his personal journals, now known as Meditations, became one of history's most enduring guides to inner strength. What makes them remarkable isn't their eloquence, but their raw honesty. Page after page, the emperor interrogates his own fears, doubts, and frustrations, transforming them into lessons. That's the power of journaling through a Stoic lens. It turns the chaotic whirl of self-doubt into something you can hold in your hands, examine, and ultimately disarm. Consider how we process doubts when they stay trapped in our heads. They spiral, mutate, grow teeth. But when you press them onto paper, "I'm unprepared for this presentation," or "they'll think I'm a fraud," something shifts. The words stare back at you, stripped of their emotional charge, ready to be dissected. This is why Marcus wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." Journaling isn't just recording thoughts, it's curating them. Start with this prompt tonight. Is this doubt based on fact or feeling? Take your most persistent fear, "I'll fail this exam," and split it down the middle. On one side, list concrete evidence. "I've passed harder tests before. I've studied 20 hours this week." on the other, acknowledge the emotional fog. My stomach knots when I think about it. I keep imagining the worst. Suddenly, the monster under the bed has a shape, and shapes are easier to fight. Marcus' journals reveal a man constantly cross-examining his own biases. In one entry, he chastises himself for wasting energy on gossip. In another, he dissects his anger like a scientist studying a specimen. What is this thing in itself? What is its nature? That's the Stoic advantage journaling as forensic analysis. You're not venting, you're gathering data to outmaneuver doubt. Try this 3-part template adapted from Meditations. First, describe the doubt plainly. I'm terrified to ask for a raise. Next, fact-check it. Have I contributed measurable value this year? Has my manager acknowledged my work? Finally, reframe it. Even if they say no, I'll have practiced advocating for myself. The goal isn't to erase fear, but to shrink it down to its true size. The magic of this practice, over time you'll spot patterns. You'll notice how often doubts crumble under scrutiny, how frequently, I can't masks, I'm scared to try. Marcus knew this. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Journaling is how you exercise that power, one page at a time. Because when you externalize your fears, you stop being their prisoner and become their warden. And that's when clarity begins. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, paralyzed by the fear of jumping until you remember why you climbed up there in the first place. That's what happens when we anchor our actions to virtues rather than fleeting emotions. The Stoics didn't just preach courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance. They used these virtues as compass points, guiding every decision, especially when doubt clouded their path. Epictetus took this further with his concept of role ethics, the idea that life assigns us roles: parent, leader, artist, friend, and our job isn't to perform them perfectly, but to embody their highest virtues. When self-doubt whispers, "You're not cut out for this," virtues reply, "This is who I choose to be." Think of a nurse during a crisis. Their hands might shake, but their commitment to courage and service overrides the fear. That's Stoicism in action. Marcus Aurelius ruled Rome by asking himself daily, "What does the role of emperor demand of me?" Not, "How can I avoid criticism?" Or, "What if I fail?" But, "How can I act with wisdom and fairness today?" Virtues turn abstract ideals into daily decisions. They're not lofty ideals to admire, they're tools to wield when uncertainty strikes. Here's how to build your own virtue framework. Start by listing the 4 Stoic virtues: wisdom, seeing clearly; courage, acting despite fear; justice, serving others; and temperance, mastering impulses. Then add a 5th that resonates with you, like creativity or resilience. Now tie them to your roles. Are you a mentor? Wisdom guides how you advise. A creator? Courage fuels your vulnerability. Epictetus taught that confusion fades when we ask, "What would a good parent/leader/artist do here?" Try this tonight. Draft a virtue-based mission statement in 2 parts. First, define your core roles. I am a writer who educates, a partner who supports, a citizen who contributes. Then, assign virtues to each. As a writer, I prioritize clarity, wisdom over applause. As a partner, I choose patience, temperance over reactivity. Keep it where you'll see it daily, taped to your laptop or saved as a phone lock screen. When doubt creeps in, don't ask, "Can I do this?" Ask, "How would my best self proceed?" History's most grounded figures didn't rely on motivation, they leaned on principles. Lincoln's resolve during the Civil War sprang from his commitment to justice, not certainty. Frida Kahlo painted through pain because creativity was her non-negotiable virtue. The Stoics knew this. When you define who you aspire to be, the question of "Can I?" becomes "How will I?" And that's how doubt loses its voice, not by being silenced, but by being drowned out by something louder. your unwavering commitment to showing up as the person you've chosen to become. The Stoics didn't just endure discomfort, they sought it out like a blacksmith deliberately tempering steel to make it unbreakable. Seneca slept on hard beds and wore thin robes in winter. Musonius Rufus insisted his students eat simple meals of bread and water. These weren't acts of punishment, but training a way to prove to themselves that comfort was a preference, not a necessity. Because here's the paradox: the more you willingly step into unease, the less power it has to shake you when life inevitably serves it up unasked. Discomfort, when chosen, becomes a playground for confidence. Take cold showers, a practice modern science now confirms boosts resilience. That first blast of icy water triggers the same primal panic as facing a daunting challenge: rapid breath, pounding heart, the urge to flee. But when you stay under the stream, breath steady, you're not just washing your body, you're teaching your nervous system a vital lesson: this is temporary. I can handle far more than I think. The Roman general Cotto marched barefoot in snow to harden himself against future hardships. Today's equivalent might be turning off your phone for a day to sit with boredom, or taking the stairs when the elevator beckons. Tiny acts, but each one whispers to your doubts: see, you're stronger than your excuses. Here's how to start tonight. Pick one micro-challenge that nudges you slightly outside your comfort zone. Skip the snooze button tomorrow and rise immediately. Walk without headphones, letting your thoughts surface. Order the dish you've never tried instead of your usual. These seem trivial, but they're neurological push-ups strengthening your capacity to act despite discomfort. Epictetus, born a slave, knew this intimately. Difficulty shows what men are. When trouble comes, it's then you're tested. By voluntarily embracing small hardships, you're inoculating yourself against the shock of involuntary ones. The magic lies in the reframe. Most people spend their lives chasing ease, then crumble when hardship finds them anyway. Stoics flipped the script. They court manageable discomfort to forge unshakable ease within. Think of it like vaccination, a controlled exposure that builds immunity. That's why Navy SEAL train in freezing water and sleep deprivation. Not because missions require it, but because once you've willingly faced extremes, ordinary stressors lose their fangs. Your challenge isn't to punish yourself, but to rediscover your agency. When you choose to feel hunger for a few extra hours, or sit with an awkward silence instead of filling it, you're declaring, "I decide what breaks me." And that's the ultimate antidote to self-doubt: not avoiding struggle, but knowing you've already met worse and survived. So tonight, as you climb into bed, leave the window cracked open just a little wider than usual. Let the chill remind you, comfort is a cage you're learning to step outside of, one voluntary shiver at a time. Epictetus once told his students, "In life, our job isn't to win the race, but to run it with all our might." That might sound counterintuitive in a world obsessed with outcomes, promotions, likes, trophies, but here's the radical truth the Stoics uncovered. Attaching your self-worth to results is like tying your happiness to a weather vane. You'll spin endlessly, never finding steady ground, because results, they're fickle. They depend on judges, competitors, luck, but effort, that's yours alone. It's the one variable no one can take from you. Think of a basketball player stepping to the free throw line with seconds left. If their confidence hinges solely on whether the shot falls, they're handing their peace of mind to the whims of gravity. But if they focus on the 10,000 practice shots that brought them here, the perfect arc of their wrist, the rhythm of their breath, they reclaim their power. Make or miss, they leave the court knowing they controlled what they could. That's the Stoic mindset. Playing the game well is the victory. The scoreboard is just noise. This isn't about dismissing goals, it's about shifting your center of gravity. A writer obsessing over bestseller lists might freeze at the keyboard, but one who treasures the daily act of crafting sentences will always have a reason to show up. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling an empire, wrote, "The reward for your actions lies in having done them, not in applause, not in legacy, in the integrity of the effort itself." Here's how to practice this tonight. Pick one endeavor where you've been fixated on outcomes: a job application, a fitness milestone, a creative project. Now list 3 aspects of your effort you can honor regardless of results. Did you research thoroughly, show up consistently, push past discomfort? Those are your true victories. Epictetus, born into slavery, knew better than anyone. We control so little in life, but our commitment to showing up, that's our masterpiece, the irony. When you detach from outcomes, you often perform better. The musician, freed from craving standing ovations, plays with more soul. The entrepreneur, no longer paralyzed by what if we fail, innovates boldly. Because effort untethered from desperation has room to breathe, to grow, to surprise even you. So next time self-doubt hisses, what if it's not enough? Whisper back, enough is already here in the work, the grit, the heart I've poured into this. The rest isn't yours to hold, but the effort, that's yours forever. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, didn't just preach logic. He weaponized it against the distortions of fear. When self-doubt screams, "You'll fail," Stoicism teaches us to respond not with blind reassurance, but with cold, hard evidence. Imagine standing in a courtroom where your inner critic is the prosecutor, hurling accusations without proof. Zeno's approach: cross-examine those claims like a skeptical judge. Because self-doubt thrives on vague generalities, "I always mess up," but crumbles under specific scrutiny. Start with this exercise tonight. The next time doubt whispers, "You're not capable," open a notebook and divide the page into 2 columns. Label the first accusations, write the critic's exact words. "You bombed the last presentation, so this one will too." Now fill the second column, evidence, with counterpoints. "I've delivered 5 successful talks this year. The one that went poorly was due to tech issues, not my preparation." This isn't positive thinking, it's factual thinking. Marcus Aurelius used this method in his journals, dissecting his fears with clinical precision. Ask yourself, what is the nature of this thing I fear? Is it truly within my control? The Stoics knew emotions are sticky, they cling to unverified beliefs, but logic acts like solvent, dissolving those distortions. Consider a musician who freezes backstage, convinced they'll forget the chords. The emotion says disaster is coming. The evidence says, "I've practiced this piece 200 times." Muscle memory works even when nerves don't. That's the power of Zeno's legacy, turning self-doubt from a tyrant into a hypothesis to test. For an even stronger rebuttal, keep a proof of competence file, digital or physical. Every time you receive praise, overcome a challenge, or learn a new skill, document it. A client's thank you email, a completed project, even a personal breakthrough like cooking a complex meal. When doubt resurfaces, open that file. Epictetus, born into slavery, had no trophies to display, but he measured his worth by acts of courage and integrity. Your evidence doesn't need applause to count, it just needs to be real. The key is recognizing that self-judgment is rarely objective. Emotions shout, logic whispers. But as Seneca proved when false accusations led to his exile, the truth doesn't vanish just because feelings obscure it. By anchoring yourself in evidence, not the shifting sands of self-criticism, you reclaim the clarity the Stoics revered. Because doubt might knock at the door, but with Zeno's tools, you decide whether to let it in. Marcus Aurelius scribbled a startling truth in his private journals. The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them knows anything about the subject. Picture standing on a windswept cliff, letting gales of gossip and judgment rush past you without resistance. That's the Stoic stance on external opinions. They saw praise and criticism alike as gusts of wind, loud, temporary, and powerless unless you built a sail to catch them. For all his imperial power, Marcus reminded himself daily that even the harshest insults were just sound and fury, signifying nothing. Because when you tie your self-worth to others' fleeting assessments, you hand them the reins to your peace. Consider the absurdity of valuing every random opinion equally. If a stranger scoffed at your choice of breakfast cereal, would you spiral into self-doubt? Probably not. Yet when it comes to career choices, creative risks, or personal growth, we often treat offhand remarks like divine verdicts. The Stoics called this the tyranny of the mirror, believing our reflection in others' eyes defines us. Seneca, who faced relentless political slander, wrote, "What does it matter what anyone says about you if you're no longer saying it to yourself?" He didn't ignore feedback, he filtered it through a single question. Does this person's judgment hold water, or is it just noise? Here's how to spot when doubt is hijacked by imagined judgments. Next time hesitation strikes, say, before posting an unconventional idea online, pause. Ask, am I resisting because of genuine concern or an invisible panel of critics I've invented? Most, what will they think? Fears crumble under that light. Epictetus, born into slavery, had no social status to lose, yet he taught, if someone handed your body to a passerby, you'd be outraged. Why hand your mind to strangers? Try this tonight. Recall a recent moment when external opinions swayed you. Maybe you muted your true thoughts in a meeting or ditched a hobby because it wasn't cool. Now, rewrite the scene as if you were deaf to judgments. How would you have acted? The gap between those versions reveals where you've been outsourcing your confidence. The Stoics didn't pretend indifference was easy. Even Marcus confessed to sleepless nights over rumors, but he trained himself to return to one truth. It never hurts me if someone thinks poorly of me, it hurts them. Because when you stop mistaking opinions for facts, you reclaim something priceless, the freedom to define yourself on your own terms, and that's when the wind loses its power to knock you off course. There's a reason Stoic philosophers kept skulls on their desks, not as morbid decorations, but as visceral reminders of life's fleeting nature. Memento mori, Latin for remember you must die, wasn't meant to paralyze them with fear, but to ignite urgency. Seneca, in his piercing essay on the shortness of life, wrote, "It's not that we have so little time, but that we waste so much of it." He wasn't scolding, he was waking us up. Because here's the paradox, when you stare mortality in the face, self-doubt suddenly seems like a luxury you can't afford. Picture two versions of yourself at the end of your life. One looks back with a sigh, I played it safe, I stayed small. The other, though weary, smiles, I dared even when my knees shook. Which haunts you more, the risks taken or the chances missed? That's the power of memento mori. It cuts through hesitation like sunlight through fog, revealing what truly matters. The entrepreneur hesitating to launch their idea, the artist afraid to share their work. What if today were the last day they could? History's most impactful figures, from Steve Jobs to Marie Curie, didn't just ponder mortality, they let it sharpen their focus. Jobs famously asked himself each morning, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do? When the answer was no too often, he changed course. Seneca took this further. He observed how people squander years chasing trivialities, status, wealth, others' approval, only to realize too late they'd neglected their deepest callings. You live as if you were destined to live forever, he wrote. No thought of your frailty ever enters your head. But here's the twist: when you embrace life's brevity, you stop waiting for permission. The writer drafts that novel, the shy student raises their hand, the parent speaks their love more boldly, because doubt thrives in the illusion of endless tomorrows. Mortality grounds us in the fierce now. Try this tonight. Set a timer for 5 minutes and write your own eulogy, not as others might recite it, but as you'd want it to sound. What legacy would you ache to leave? Now circle one action you've postponed out of fear. That's your starting line. Marcus Aurelius framed it bluntly. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say. Not as a threat, but as a gift, the clarity that comes when you stop pretending time is infinite. The Stoics knew a secret: death isn't life's opposite, but its compass. When you stop fearing the end, you start honoring the middle. So ask yourself today, with Seneca's unflinching honesty, what would you attempt if doubt didn't stop you? And then, as if your bones already whisper memento mori, begin. Seneca, the philosopher who advised emperors, faced a dilemma familiar to anyone staring down a mountain of unfinished work: how to begin when the summit seems impossibly far. His solution: deferred progress, the art of breaking monumental tasks into steps so small they bypass resistance. Picture a sculptor staring at a block of marble, not with visions of the finished statue, but with a simple question: where does the chisel strike next? That's Stoic action in motion. When self-doubt screams, "You'll never finish," Seneca whispers back, "You don't have to, just start." Modern psychology confirms what the Stoics practiced. Overwhelm thrives in the gap between where you stand and the distant finish line. But close that gap to just today's actionable step, and paralysis loses its grip. Take writing a book, an endeavor that crushes many before they type a word. The Stoic approach: not write a bestseller, but draft one paragraph before lunch. Marcus Aurelius didn't wake up thinking, "I must rule Rome perfectly today." His journals reveal a man focused on micro-virtues. Today, I'll listen more than I speak. Today, I'll respond to anger with patience. Here's how to apply this tonight. Grab a project you've been avoiding and dissect it like a Stoic. Instead of clean the garage, identify the first physical action. Pick up 3 tools and put them away. Not get in shape, but walk 10 minutes after dinner. Epictetus, who taught students chained by their own mental barriers, put it bluntly: no great thing is created suddenly. The pyramids rose one block at a time. Your confidence builds the same way, not in heroic leaps, but in daily, deliberate inches. The magic lies in the reframe. Most people mistake momentum for motivation, waiting to feel ready before acting. Stoics reverse this. Action creates the feeling. A runner's hardest step isn't the 10th mile, it's lacing their shoes. By shrinking goals to laughably small starters, you trick doubt into silence. "I can't write a novel" becomes "I can scribble 3 sentences." And once the ink flows, something shifts. Progress, however tiny, breeds its own courage. Try this experiment. For the next 3 days, set absurdly modest goals. Read 1 page, do 2 push-ups, send 1 awkward email. Notice how these micro-wins chip away at resistance. Seneca observed that sailors cross oceans not by swallowing the horizon whole, but by fixing their eyes on the next wave. Your dreams are no different. The path forward isn't a single grueling marathon, it's a chain of manageable steps, each one proof that you're stronger than your doubts. And with every small victory, you're not just moving closer to your goal. You're rebuilding your belief in the one person who can get you there yourself. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who rivaled Epictetus in influence, had a radical view of criticism. He saw it as free education. While others flinched at harsh words, he leaned in, asking, "What if this sting holds a truth that could set me free?" That's the Stoic twist on feedback, not as an attack to endure, but as raw material for growth. Here's the catch: self-doubt often makes us allergic to criticism, while overconfidence dismisses it entirely. Stoicism walks the razor's edge between these extremes, teaching us to neither crumble before nor ignore outside perspectives, but to sift them with deliberate curiosity. Imagine two blacksmiths receiving feedback on a blade. The first storms off, insisting his work is flawless. The second, though proud of his craft, holds the blade to the light and asks, "Show me where it bends." That's Stoic humility in action, the willingness to seek cracks, not to shame yourself, but to strengthen what's already strong. Marcus Aurelius, despite his power, wrote, "If anyone can correct me, I'll gladly learn. For I seek truth which never harmed anyone." He didn't chase praise, he hunted for blind spots. The key is intentionality. Most feedback we encounter is noise off, and remarks from strangers, knee-jerk critiques from those who don't understand our goals. But structured, growth-focused input, that's gold. Start small. Identify one person whose judgment you respect, a mentor, a colleague with shared values, a friend who balances kindness with honesty. Then ask them a specific question. What's one way I could improve my next presentation? Or, where do you see me holding myself back? Framing matters. Avoid vague requests like "be honest." That invites unhelpful broadsides. Instead, guide them toward actionable insights. Musonius took this further. He'd deliberately engage with critics, not to win arguments, but to mine their objections for nuggets of truth. When a rival philosopher mocked his teachings, he didn't retaliate, he dissected the critique for valid points. Try this reframe tonight. Next time feedback stings, pause. Ask, even if this delivery was clumsy, is there a seed of truth here? A harsh coworker might lack tact, but their comment about your rushed reports could reveal a real pattern. Separate the message from the messenger. Stoic feedback isn't about absorbing every opinion. It's about developing filters. Epictetus offered a three-part test. Is this person knowledgeable in the area they're critiquing? Are their intentions constructive? Does this align with my core values? If all three boxes tick, lean in. If not, let it pass like background noise. The goal isn't to please everyone. It's to identify the signals in the static that can help you grow. Here's your challenge this week. Reach out to one trusted source and request feedback on a single skill you're refining. When they respond, practice prosouch Stoic mindfulness by noticing your instinct to defend or deflect. Then extract one tangible improvement. Maybe it's speaking slower in meetings or adding more data to your proposals. Whatever it is, implement it for 7 days. Record the results. You'll discover what the Stoics knew. Criticism, when curated wisely, isn't the enemy of confidence, it's the whetstone that sharpens it. Epictetus, the philosopher who found freedom in a life of simplicity, once told his students, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." That's the Stoic secret to building unshakable confidence, not by chasing grand, distant triumphs, but by recognizing the quiet victories already lining your path. Most of us barrel through life like travelers fixated on the horizon, never noticing the wildflowers at our feet. But the Stoics, they cultivated a practice called prosouch attentiveness, training themselves to spot and savor progress, no matter how small. Because confidence isn't forged in rare, explosive moments of glory. It's woven daily through threads of tiny wins. Think of a gardener who pauses each evening to admire new sprouts breaking through the soil. They're not waiting for the harvest to feel pride. The act of tending itself becomes the reward. That's the mindset shift Stoicism offers. When Marcus Aurelius journaled about finding joy in the doing rather than the done, he wasn't dismissing big goals. He was reminding himself that the muscle of self-trust grows strongest when flexed in ordinary moments. Did you resist snapping at a rude colleague? That's discipline taking root. Did you draft one imperfect paragraph? That's creativity in motion. These aren't consolation prizes, they're the building blocks of mastery. Here's how to put this into practice tonight. Borrow a ritual from Epictetus' playbook. Before bed, list 3 micro-wins from your day. Not promotions or breakthroughs, but subtle acts of courage, patience, or effort. Maybe you finally deleted that toxic app or swallowed your pride and asked for help. Perhaps you simply got out of bed when every fiber wanted to hide. Write them down without downplaying them. Stayed calm during the traffic jam. Called mom even though I was tired. At first, this might feel trivial, but over time you'll spot patterns. Those small wins, they're proof you're already stronger than your doubts. The Stoics took this further by linking gratitude to growth. Seneca would end his days reflecting not just on what went well, but on how challenges had sharpened him. Today I was tested by X and I responded with Y. This isn't Pollyanna positivity, it's strategic reinforcement. Neuroscientists now confirm what the Stoics intuited. Noticing progress literally rewires your brain to expect competence. Every time you acknowledge I showed up, you dilute the power of I can't. Try this twist. Pair your 3 victories with 1 lesson in disguise. That meeting that went sideways, it taught you to prepare better slides. The awkward networking event, it proved you can survive discomfort. Even missteps become milestones when you mine them for wisdom. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, famously said his greatest teacher was failure not despite its sting, but because of it. The magic lies in consistency. Confidence isn't a lightning strike, it's the slow burn of accumulated evidence that you're capable. So tonight, when self-doubt whispers, you haven't done enough, open your notebook and let your own handwriting refute the lie. Because the Stoics knew something we often forget. No one leaps from insecurity to unshakable faith in a single bound. You bridge the gap one small, celebrated step at a time. And those steps, they're already beneath your feet. Seneca, the philosopher who faced exile and slander with unbroken calm, had a secret weapon most of us never consider. He rehearsed adversity like an actor memorizing lines. While others dreaded confrontation, he'd already lived it in his mind, crafting responses to insults with the precision of a playwright. They say my lectures are boring. Then I'll thank them for attending despite their disinterest. This wasn't just wit, it was psychological armor forged in advance. Because here's what the Stoics knew. When self-doubt strikes in real time, you default to your most practiced reactions. If your only rehearsal is panic, that's what will take the stage. But if you've pre-scripted calm, you'll meet challenges with the steadiness of someone who saw them coming. Think of firefighters drilling for emergencies. They don't wait for the blaze to practice pulling hoses. They simulate smoke-filled rooms until muscle memory overrides fear. That's the power of role-playing doubted scenarios. Your mind can't tell the difference between vivid rehearsal and reality. When you mentally walk through a job interview gone wrong, or a presentation where your voice shakes, you're not inviting disaster, you're inoculating yourself against paralysis. Marcus Aurelius did this daily, visualizing setbacks. What if the crowd boos? What if my allies betray me? Then mapping his response, I'll stay true to my principles, not their applause. Here's how to put this into practice tonight. Pick one recurring self-doubt trigger, maybe your boss's critical tone or the dread of blanking during a speech. Now write a 3-line script for how your most stoic self would respond. Not a clapback, but a grounded reply that deflects the sting. For example, trigger, you're overqualified for this role. Stoic reply, I appreciate that perspective. To me, qualifications are tools, and the right project matters more than the title. The goal isn't to craft perfect comebacks, but to rewire your instinct from flinching to responding. Seneca's letters reveal he'd even practiced delivering bad news calmly, testing different phrasings until he found ones that conveyed truth without cruelty. Grief is the price of love, he'd say, and worth every coin. Take this further by recruiting a trusted friend for a 5-minute role play. Ask them to voice your inner critic's harshest taunts. Who do you think you are? You'll embarrass yourself while you reply with pre-written Stoic mantras. I'm someone who shows up. Discomfort is the tax on growth. It will feel awkward at first, like rehearsing a foreign language. But soon, those neural pathways will fire faster than doubt's old echoes. The brilliance of this practice, it exposes a truth we often miss. Most feared scenarios are predictable. The same doubts, the same criticisms loop endlessly. By pre-rehearsing your calm, you turn life's unpredictability into a script you've already read. So when the moment comes, you're not reacting from scratch. You're performing a role you've perfected, the unshakable protagonist of your own story. And that's how doubt loses its power, not by being silenced, but by being out-prepared. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king who ruled the most powerful empire on earth, would often pause in the chaos of war and politics to remind himself of a single truth: what benefits the hive benefits the bee. That simple phrase captures the heart of Stoic cosmic duty, the idea that our smallest actions ripple outward, woven into something far greater than ourselves. While modern life bombards us with messages to put yourself first, the Stoics measured success differently. To them, true fulfillment wasn't found in personal accolades, but in aligning your efforts with the universal current of service. Imagine two stonemasons carving blocks. One grumbles, "I'm just stacking rocks." The other whispers, "I'm building a cathedral." Both do the same work, but only one knows the weight of their contribution. That's the power of purpose. It transforms obligation into meaning. This isn't about grand gestures or martyrdom. Cosmic duty lives in the quiet choices. The teacher who stays late to explain a concept, the nurse who holds a trembling hand, the programmer who codes with accessibility in mind. Epictetus, born into slavery, taught that even the most constrained life could radiate purpose. If you can't be a king, be the best damn subject you can be, he'd say. Because Stoicism recognizes a profound paradox: the more we anchor our efforts to something beyond ourselves, the more unshakable our confidence becomes. When self-doubt hisses, "Who are you to try this?" purpose replies, "I'm someone who serves." Here's how to weave this into your daily life. Tonight, take one goal you've been hesitating on: launching a business, writing a book, even just speaking up more at work, and reframe it through Marcus' lens. Ask, how does this contribute to the world beyond me? A chef isn't just cooking meals, they're nourishing celebrations and comfort. A plumber isn't just fixing pipes, they're safeguarding health and dignity. The Stoics called this sympatheia, the interconnectedness of all things. Your work, however humble it seems, is a stitch in the fabric of humanity. Seneca took this further, urging his students to see themselves as citizens of the cosmos. "The universe made you a contributor," he wrote, "not a bystander." Try this visualization. Picture your life as a single thread in an endless tapestry. Trace it backward to the teachers who shaped you, the strangers whose labor built your home, the ancestors whose survival made your existence possible. Now extend it forward. How will your thread strengthen the weave for those yet to come? When you see yourself as part of this continuum, hesitation loses its grip. Because the question shifts from "Can I do this?" to "What will the world lose if I don't?" History's most resilient figures drew strength from this perspective. Florence Nightingale didn't endure the horrors of battlefield hospitals for fame. She served because suffering demanded it. Van Gogh painted not for acclaim, but because beauty begged to be shared. The Stoics knew this secret. Purpose is the antidote to doubt. So next time fear whispers, anchor yourself in service. Remember the words of Marcus Aurelius as he rallied his troops amid plague and war. Whatever happens to you has been waiting to happen since the beginning of time. Now it's your turn to decide, will you meet it with smallness or with strength? The answer, when framed as duty, becomes clear. There comes a moment in every struggle when the weight of the present makes us forget our own strength. But the Stoics discovered a powerful antidote hidden in plain sight: memory. Not just any memory, but the deliberate act of retracing your steps through past battles to remind yourself you've been here before, and you've already won. Marcus Aurelius called this the view from above, a mental shift where you rise above your current panic like an eagle soaring over terrain, seeing not just the obstacle in front of you, but the entire path you've already traveled. Because here's what self-doubt hates most: evidence, and nothing silences it faster than the unshakable proof of your own resilience. Picture Cato the Younger, the Stoic senator who defied Julius Caesar's tyranny even as Rome crumbled around him. Exiled, mocked, and ultimately cornered, he chose death over surrender, yet his final act wasn't despair but defiance. With his last breath, he reread Plato's Phaedo on the immortality of the soul, then took his own life rather than submit to corruption. Historians often focus on his death, but the real lesson lies in what preceded it: decades of smaller, uncelebrated victories, the speeches he delivered despite booing crowds, the laws he passed knowing they'd make him enemies. Each time, he could have surrendered to doubt. Why keep fighting when the tide is against me? But he drew strength from his own track record. Every past no he'd weathered became fuel for the next stand. This is why Stoics journaled relentlessly, not to dwell on the past but to mine it. When Seneca faced exile, he didn't just endure it. He documented how he'd survived previous hardships: the loneliness of youth, the betrayal of false friends. Those pages became his arsenal. Turn your gaze backward, he wrote, and survey the 1,000 trails you've already passed. Modern psychology confirms this. Recalling past resilience literally rewires your brain to handle stress better. It's not about nostalgia, it's about building a case against your own insecurities. Here's how to apply this tonight. Open your notes app or a journal and list 3 challenges you've already overcome. Not just the big victories, but the quiet ones too. That time you spoke up even though your voice shook, the rejection that led to a better opportunity, the illness or heartbreak you thought would break you but didn't. Now zoom out like Marcus Eagle. See the patterns. Didn't I think that last crisis would destroy me too? Yet here I am. The goal isn't to dismiss your current fears, but to place them in the context of a life already rich with proof that you're tougher than you think. For a deeper exercise, borrow Epictetus' Discipline of Ascent. When doubt whispers you can't handle this, pause, mentally time travel to a past struggle and ask, what tools did I use then that I've forgotten? Maybe it was humor to deflect pain, or breaking the problem into tiny steps. Often, we possess strategies we fail to recognize because they've become second nature. The soldier doesn't remember learning to tie their boots, but the skill still serves them. The brilliance of the view from above is that it doesn't just comfort, it empowers. When you see your life as a continuum rather than a series of isolated crises, you spot the through line, your unbroken capacity to adapt. So next time doubt tries to convince you this challenge is different, pull out your mental ledger. Remind yourself of the receipts, because the Stoics were right. You're not facing this storm empty-handed. You're armed with every battle you've already won. We've walked through 22 Stoic strategies to silence self-doubt, not as a one-time fix, but as a toolkit for a lifetime. Because here's the truth no quick-fix guru will tell you. Mastery over your mind isn't about never stumbling. It's about learning to rise each time you do. The Stoics didn't promise a life without fear or doubt. They promised something far more powerful, the ability to meet those shadows with unwavering resolve. Think of these steps not as items to check off, but as notes in a melody you'll play for the rest of your days. Some days, the rhythm will come easily. Other days, you'll fumble the keys, but the music never stops, and neither does your progress. Marcus Aurelius, despite his imperial power, wrote the same reminders to himself year after year. Not because he'd failed to learn them, but because wisdom isn't a destination, it's a path walked daily. The athlete doesn't lift a weight once and call it strength. The musician doesn't play a scale perfectly and abandon practice. Why would the art of self-trust be any different? Every time you question a doubt instead of surrendering to it, every time you choose effort over outcomes or service over self-pity, you're not just applying Stoicism, you're living it. And that's where real transformation hides, not in grand, Instagrammable breakthroughs, but in the quiet accumulation of ordinary courage. Epictetus, the philosopher who turned bondage into freedom, left us with words that cut to the heart of this journey. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Not wait until you feel ready, not hope others validate you, but do, not perfection but practice, not certainty but action. So here's your challenge, don't try to swallow all 22 steps at once. Pick just one. Maybe it's journaling your doubts tonight to drain their power. Maybe it's seeking feedback from someone you respect, or embracing a micro-discomfort tomorrow morning. Plant that single seed, tend it, and watch how it roots. And as you do, remember, you're not alone in this. For 2,000 years, people like you have turned to Stoicism not because life was easy, but because it was hard. Share your chosen step in the comments. What's the first move you're making to build unshakable confidence? Your words might be the torch that helps someone else find their way. Because the Stoic path was never meant to be walked in isolation. It's a shared journey, one deliberate step at a time, and your next step begins now.